What is up, Mets'd listeners? Back here for episode number 80 of the Mets'd podcast. Of course, I'm your co-host, Giraffe Neck Mark Luino, here with James Shiano. Jeter had no range, talking about everything that's gone on the past week in New York Mets world and New York Mets baseball. And just like the last episode, we actually have baseball games to talk about. We have stats, we have players, we have so many things that isn't the lockout to talk about. I'm so excited that baseball's back. I know James is as well. So make sure you guys are following us on all our social media at Mets'd. You'll be able to find us on Twitter, Instagram. You'll be able to find our YouTube channel, Mets'd Podcast as well, where we're dropping full episodes of the pod, as well as some little short clips here and there for you guys to take in and enjoy. Make sure you're listening to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen, you will be able to find us. Drop us a 5-star rating. Drop us a review. It really does help us out. If you drop us a review, we'll give you a shout out in the next episode. You heard it here first. And let's bring in James. James, how you feeling?
I'm feeling really good, man. But it's kind of annoying that you keep bringing up the old times, the sad times of the offseason, talking about, we have baseball again. I know we have baseball again. We're going to have baseball for the foreseeable future. Why do you have to announce it every episode?
I just like to remember the dark days so that we appreciate the days that are currently coming. Because boy, oh boy, how great has it been to watch Mets baseball?
Amazing. I think today, Sunday, when we're recording, hopefully Monday when you guys are listening, this was the first real taste of Mets baseball that we've had yet. Like, we've had a couple spring training games. DeGrom and Scherzer each had their own days last week, but today they were together in what was such an unbelievable spectacle on Pix 11.
We love to talk about juice on this podcast. We're big on juice. We're pro juice here, and I don't think that there's ever been a spring training game that has had as much juice as what happened today. I'm willing to say it. That's the most hyped, buzzed spring training game of all time.
I agree with you. Even just the activity on Twitter for the Mets'd podcast, we were picking up followers, tweeting videos. It was great.
I mean, like, Scherzer and DeGrom seemingly will probably never pitch in the same game again.
I want to talk about that. There could be some kind of magical situation where maybe they're both on at least 3 days rest, and this could be a formula to win a game. It's kind of hilarious.
Well, I think probably in the postseason, that's more realistic, I would think.
Yeah, or like that last game of the regular season against the Braves or something.
Because let me tell you, this is them in spring training, and they were pretty impossible to hit. Imagine when these guys got some real innings underneath their belt. They're pitching at home in Citi Field. I mean, this is going to be scary. These two guys were on today, and I don't even think they necessarily had their best stuff by any means. It's still the second, third start of spring training for these guys.
Yeah, DeGrom said he'd scaled it back a little bit and was taking it easy, which is really funny because he was like effortlessly sitting 99, but he didn't even go even half of a mile an hour over it, which is beautiful. The fact that he's reined it in that much. And Gary and them were even mentioning, they were saying that he was like working on new things today. Jacob DeGrom today threw as many curveballs as he threw all of last season. For some reason, he's just working on the curveball. And it's not like an astounding curveball by any means, but it's still Jacob DeGrom throwing a curveball. So the pitch looked great. I think I remember him getting like Lars Nootbaar looking with one, maybe someone like that. But he looked so effortlessly amazing. It was beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and we saw him also sprinkling a curveball in his first start as well, which was kind of a joke too, because I think Scherzer told him, why don't you start off the game with a curveball? And what does DeGrom do? Drops one right in there. They're laughing. The vibes are immaculate with those two. They are absolute gamers, and they showed it today. Like you said, DeGrom's ability to just be able to not throw 100 miles an hour, but throw 99 when he's not giving full effort, that's so crazy, because this is a guy, we say it all the time, when he first came up, this is not the pitcher that he was, and now he's able to relax at 99. That's not something you see from anyone.
No, literally no one else in baseball. Because usually the 99 guys, you're like really hoofing it. Like Edwin Diaz throws 99. He's like screaming, his body's filling. DeGrom's just having a catch at 99 miles an hour with Tomas Nido. We got to give Scherzer some shine too, because having a 6-inning save in a spring training game is something that I don't think I've ever seen before. And it's something we might never see again. He just Bumgarnered it out for the end of this game.
I just can't even wrap my head around pitching 6 innings in a spring training game. I legitimately, I feel like the most I've ever seen in a game is 5 innings in spring training. And that's usually your last start before the regular season. Scherzer just casually went 85 pitches or whatever it was today. And he really was he gave up an absolute nuke to Anderson Tejada, which I never thought he could hit a baseball that far. But like Scherzer always does, he was clinical. He was dominant. No one was really hitting the ball well against him.
No, but I also want to shout out Dylan Carlson and Harrison Bader. They both had some good at-bats against DeGrom. Harrison Bader had 1 good at-bat against DeGrom. Dylan Carlson had 2, which, again, whenever someone can get in the box against either of these guys and make themselves look competitive, it's you got to tip the cap. And the Cardinals team has some good hitters, a lot of which didn't play today, but it was just so great. I hanging out right now with one of my friends who's a big Mets fan. I was like, what's the plan with the pitchers today? Because we were trying to navigate how much Mets we were going to watch before the basketball started. And he was like, DeGrom for 3, Scherzer for 6. And I laughed. I thought he was joking. It turned out to be true.
Dude, how do you think that the Cardinals hitters like Arenado, Goldschmidt, who weren't in the lineup today, were just like, yeah, we're not playing against these guys in spring.
Yeah,
There's no
probably
way.
fuck this.
Like, imagine you're like fifth, sixth spring training game, and you're like, I have to see DeGrom and Scherzer, two of the 5 best pitchers in Major League Baseball. This is my second week in Florida. This isn't fair.
It's also fucked up for like the prospects, the AA, the AAA, the quadruple A guys who are coming into a spring training game in the 8th inning, usually expecting to see like the 23rd best pitcher in the team's organization. Max Scherzer's on the mound, 5 innings hot.
Juan Yepes is fighting for a spot on the team, and he's like, I got to go up against DeGrom and Scherzer today. Are you kidding me? That's an O first. Chalk me up.
I mean, Juan started, but like some of the names that came in for this Cardinals game that were facing Max Scherzer: Connor Capel, Delvin Perez, Ben DeLucio, Pedro Pages or Pedro Pages, probably like Kramer, Robertson. Like these are not guys who are going to be contributing in the Cardinals major league roster, and they had to deal with Max Scherzer today in the 8th inning of a spring training game, for God's sake.
And of course, it's worth noting too that Max Scherzer did pitch against the non-major league team, and DeGrom didn't go up against the strongest Cardinals team. But still, the stuff that they were able to have this early in spring, they were spot on. I mean, they were missing a ton of bats. They were getting a lot of pitches. They were commanding the zone. Everything looked really good from these two guys. And I think Ron and Gary and even Todd Zeile, they both, or all three of them, mentioned that DeGrom at times last year, you could almost see that he was wincing. He was, making some stuff with his elbow. They're like, he looks extremely comfortable out there, and that's a really encouraging sign for Mets fans.
He looks extremely, extremely comfortable, and he looks very the H word that rhymes with Felty. But like, I don't really want to ever talk about it because like it happened in the winter, was bad, but no one talked about it. And now we're in the spring and things look good. I still just don't want to talk about it. I just want to look every single 5th day, see DeGrom on the schedule, be like, all right, good, let's do it. Can't wait for the next time.
Yeah, no, those guys were incredible. But I will say, what was also really nice to see today too is that on the hitting side, the Mets bats were alive from the start. It was great to see Pete smoking baseballs, Lindor a couple homers. I mean, it felt like everybody at some point did a little something that made you get a little happy.
Yeah, that missile from Pete was like one of the 25 hardest hit balls that was recorded so far this spring. 110 off the bat, just right. Like I don't remember who was out in left field, but just
Alec
Burleson, who's a decent bat, not a very good glove, but that was light work for Pete. Lindor just hitting 2 home runs, sending the haters into an absolute tailspin, one from each side of the plate, just like the Yankee game.
Looks really good, Lindor.
Yeah.
I know this happened last spring too. Like he did look really good last spring, but boy, oh boy, does the Lindor redemption tour look so good right now because his swing is comfortable. We saw him. He was still taking pitches well last year. His plate discipline improved, as we talked about last year during the podcast. But he's now hitting for power. He now looks extremely comfortable at the plate, and I really hope he can ride this into the regular season because if we get this version of Francisco Lindor, that's incredible. That's the guy we paid $30 million a year for.
Especially stacked on top of this version of Pete Alonso, who's secretly one of the best hitters in baseball, but doesn't get the credit for it because he's a little bit of a doofus.
Because he hits like 250. But like, even at the end of the day, his patience at the plate has been phenomenal as well this spring training, I feel like.
Both of them. Again, it's hard to put so much stock into the spring training results, but at least the fact that these guys are smoking the baseball against not the best pitchers in the world, that's a very good spot to be. Lindor, even with the 2 home runs, he roped another single in like the 8th inning or something. It was a rocket. A
lot of really, really high exit velos for Francisco Lindor. You pair that with his plate discipline, that's a good recipe for success.
But this is also such a non-issue, I feel like, for most Mets fans, because most Mets fans know he's like still just a really good player. Like he had 2 bad months last year and it was awful. And then he had a very good 3 months with an injury in between. Like he's still a very good baseball player. Even at the level he played last year, he was still super useful. And now that was just by far the worst season of his entire career in the prime of his career. Like there's no reason for that to continue. And I think everyone's going to remember that Francisco Lindor is very clearly an upper echelon player in this league.
Oh, without a doubt. And I can't wait to see what he does this year. And then we also got our first little taste of Starling Marte playing right field. Took a couple swings, got a double. Starling Marte looked pretty good. He looked pretty good for what we saw of him.
He did, and it was funny because when he came to the plate in the first inning, playing right field, batting 9th, I feel like Ronnie and Gary, in addition to myself, like we kind of figured there was going to be like an easy game for Marte. They were even thinking like he was just going to have one of those games where he stood in the box and didn't take any swings because of the oblique issue, because he like kind of aggressively took the first 2 pitches. And all of a sudden he just ripped a big-time swing, and then he took his hacks. He had a double, I think, the 3rd or 4th inning, second time he came up. He looked good. It just was weird to see him batting 9th, especially in terms of if he was actually healthy. But it was nice to see him on the field.
Yeah, especially because, like you said, he took those aggressive takes. Like he showed bunt at one point. And I was like, okay, he's probably just gonna get some running in here or there. It's not
like
about
putting his elbow into it.
Yeah, he was putting his elbow into it. It's not about the swing say. It's about getting out there, getting a feel for the game. But we saw him take some hacks. We saw him hit a double down the line, which was nice. He was running incredibly well, which is something that Starling Marte brings to the Mets that we've lacked the last few years. is this incredible athlete who runs the bases so well. I don't know if you picked up on it, but they talked about it on the broadcast today when he was on second base after his double. He's taking a look around. He's looking at all the outfielders, seeing where they're standing, understanding their positioning. And then I don't remember who it was that hit a little soft line drive into center field, but Starling Marte off the crack of the bat took off, scored a run. And yes, the spring training doesn't matter, but those are the little things that you don't see the Mets do the last few years that can make the difference in a game. And it helped extend the inning. It helped get a run on the board. It's no longer first and third now. It's man on first, and you scored a run. It's a huge advantage having him out there.
It was Cano who got that RBI hit.
Nice, yeah.
Another guy I want to mention today for two reasons. Just Tomas Nido. One, he had a very nice opposite field home run. That seemed like the type of early season power we saw Nido kind of sneak in the beginning of each of the last two seasons. And he's a guy who I think we both think could be as good, if not better, than James McCann, the incumbent starting catcher. And I think it was very meaningful that he caught all 9 innings of these two pitchers.
Yeah, I think for Scherzer and DeGrom, they're probably going to lean towards Tomas Nido, especially with the numbers that came out last year about how good he was defensively and how good he was at framing. He was one of the best in the league, even in his small sample of games played. And especially with McCann, who he's better defensively than he once was, but he's still not at the Nido level. And when their bats are relatively similar, why not go with the guy who's going to give you more defense at this point?
Yeah, and again, also, I don't know. I remember Nido did have that back thing, but I think that was proven not an issue. Like, he's still working out. Just the fact that Tomas Nido got down there in the floor of the heat and caught all 9 innings for the best two pitchers in the staff, I think kind of shows his standing with the team internally. While he's definitely not the sexiest player, he's not going to be an offensive threat or a powerhouse or anything like that. Getting 7 homers from him and 400 at bats probably be a decent outcome. The fact that he is trusted by these guys to sit there and catch all 9 innings again in the hot floor of the sun of a spring training game, that even more rare than a guy pitching 6 innings in the spring is a guy catching 9. And Tomas Nido doing that, I think, shows again his level of importance within this organization.
Oh, I actually didn't even know he caught all 9 today. I thought one of the kids came in at the end for that last inning.
Caught all 9 innings.
That's insane. That's insane in a spring training game, especially for a guy who is kind of a crucial part of this team. I know he doesn't make a huge impact, but he's one of the 2 catchers that's going to go out there every day.
You are right. A guy named Nick Meyer caught the 9th inning.
Okay, so he caught 8. Oh, wow, what a difference.
Yeah. But also interesting because Alvarez came into this game as a DH, Francisco Alvarez. We're going to talk about his moonshot in probably 4 or 5 minutes, but he came in and didn't catch. I kind of would have liked to see him catch Scherzer for 1 inning instead of Nick Meyer. Yeah,
it would have been cool. I think Nick Meyer's probably someone who they value as maybe a little bit closer right now to the majors than Francisco Alvarez in terms of actual catching ability. But Francisco, even the other night when he caught, looked pretty good. But like you said, we'll talk about him in a little bit. There's still a lot more from this game. And something I want to talk about that has got my gears grinding is Robinson Cano. Holy shit, that guy is toast. I've seen enough. I do not need to see Robinson Cano on the field at all this year. We kind of knew this was something that was possible going into the year. He hadn't played in the season. Steroids, the last time we saw him play, he's playing well. Yeah, because he was juicing. He was 25 years old instead of 38. And he didn't look that great in the Winter League. I'm done. I'm done with this guy, and I got the numbers to back it up. He's so done. He stinks. He's horrible.
Well, Mark, I actually will have you know, while I'm not the biggest Robinson Cano fan, anyone listening to this podcast can tell me the ground ball double play he had today was at 108 miles an hour off the bat, which that means something. That's something. See, the fact that he's capable of doing that means he's alive.
See, I knew you were going to come with the exit velos. I've prepared. I have notes today. I've written down notes. I've got all his exit velos from all the games. And here's what I'm going to tell you. You know what happens when you get older? You can still hit the ball hard on the ground. But as we know, this is a young Bucks game. You got to hit the ball in the air. You got to hit line drives. You got to hit home runs. Hitting the ball hard on the ground does nothing for us. Josh Bell shows that every single year. Hits the ball hard on the ground, doesn't do anything. Eric Hosmer is a shit first baseman. You want to know why? Because he doesn't understand hitting the ball in the air is better than on the ground. And while Robinson Cano does know that, I don't think this is a conscious thing. I don't think he's physically able to hit the ball in the air. And here's why. Here's why I'll tell you. Game 1 of this spring training, he hit 2 balls in the air, both under 95 miles an hour. It's horrible. That's terrible. He was 1 for 2 in that game. Not hard hit. Game 2 of spring training for him, 3 balls in play, hard ground out, 104.8 miles an hour, 100%. That's a hard ground out. Congratulations. Good hit. He had 2 flyouts in that game, 82.5 miles an hour, which is despicable, and 99 miles an hour. A cool 275-foot fly ball. Wonderful, Robinson Cano. How about game 3? I got more for you. 3 balls in play,
Please.
2 ground outs. They weren't even hit hard, 92 and 87 miles an hour. And the ball that he hit in the air was 87.8. And then today, game 4 of his spring training season, 3 ground outs, 1 single. Woo! Wow, wonderful. 107, 101, 82 on the ground outs. And the single he got that he hit in the air, 75 miles an hour. Oh, Robinson Cano, man, watch out. He can hit you a hard ground ball, but can he hit the ball in the air for anything? Absolutely not. He's dead. He's toast. It's crazy. It's going to be criminal that he's going to be hitting fifth in this lineup every single day. I'm going to scream at the TV every night.
Can I tell you something really funny about Robinson Cano? A little information that I just picked up from playing fantasy baseball over the years.
Hit me.
He's notoriously, for his career, very, very not good early in the season. He's always been a slow starter. I don't know if that's just like the way he prepares or like just the Latin blood, but Robinson Cano in his career is a below average hitter in the months March, April, May, and June. All of those months he has an OPS plus of less than 100. And then once he gets to July, August, September, October, it goes up from there. So I think this Robinson Cano, I don't even know if he's going to be on the team by the time to make it to his general hot months. And also these hot months were when he was not a 40-year-old man who hadn't been out of baseball for a year and a half. But Robinson Cano, I do remember just having him on fantasy teams over the year, is a notoriously slow starter.
Yeah, I'm sure he's waiting for the Stanizol to kick in. It probably has like a half-life of like 2 months or something, and then he's ready to go.
It's like one of the best case scenarios for this team is to get the guy back on the stuff because we can get 2 months of production and then get him out.
Oh, God, how great would it be to get him juicing, get, like you said, the 2 months, and then have him banned from baseball? That'd be sick.
End his career.
$24 million a year for the next 2 seasons. Granted, Seattle covers 4 of it, so $40 million over the next 2. Oh, wow. Can't believe we're paying this fucking guy.
It just sucks. I'm a broken record. I'm beating this drum over and over again. But him taking the roster spot from someone who could just be useful somewhere else is such a big detriment to this team's success. It's terrible, especially the fact that we're going to get these extra roster spots for the month of April and can't even really use those to the best of our advantage because we have this 40-year-old guy who can't hit fly balls.
Like, oh God, I'm so done with Robinson Cano. He's going to be the guy that I scream at the TV for all year. I've got a feeling he's going to be in this lineup way too much. He's going to be hitting way too high. I wish Buck Showalter would show him the least bit of respect and hit him like 9th if he's going to be in this lineup. Hit him after McCann.
I mean, I don't even want that. I would have split those guys up. So that'd be a double play machine if those guys are back to back. It'd be awful. Yeah, he just does have the respect, and he is going to be a lefty bat. And it seems like he is playing with the starters ahead of Dom Smith right now. So I just don't think there's any way that you're not going to see him like hitting fifth or sixth on opening day.
They should be hitting Eduardo Escobar, who has looked great this spring. He has great at-bats. I love Eduardo Escobar. You know how high I've been on him. He's an extra base hit machine. There's nothing that gets me going like a good double. And he just hits the ball to all fields. He hits it with some power. He takes good at-bats. I've loved everything I've seen out of EE.
I mean, yeah, but hilariously, Eduardo Escobar has not yet hit the ball over 105 miles an hour this spring. And Robinson Cano's, I think, 3 now.
On the ground.
True, sure. Eduardo Escobar, I had this debate with my friend I'm staying with right now in San Diego. He hates Eduardo Escobar. I don't love Eduardo Escobar, but Eduardo Escobar is just a good player. And the type of contact-oriented player the Mets have not had many of the last few years. And you can also just see how much the rest of the guys have gravitated to him this spring. The fact he just plays passable defense at third base, he's going to be like 5% better than league average. Like, that's fantastic. Just keep the line moving. And the line's going to have to be moving because the Cano thing is bad. And the fact that he's starting is even worse.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. That's like there's a lot of Mets fans who feel like there's a lot of holes in this lineup right now. There's a lot of issues. Like, there's a lot of additions that weren't made. They feel like this team isn't deep enough. I think the starting lineup is pretty strong outside of like those last 2 hitters right now, which are in theory Cano and whoever's catching.
Yeah, and again, it's not that the starting lineup is that bad. It's just the guys behind them don't really fit together. We've been saying this for months repeatedly. And Gary mentioned today during the broadcast that the brain trust, and I'm quoting Gary Cohen on that, had a long meeting last night into Sunday morning because I think either tomorrow, Monday, or Tuesday, there's another round of roster cuts, basically the second to last round of cuts. And they're going to have to cut probably a lot of these fringy outfielders and Francisco, sadly, that not going to be able to make this roster over a guy like Robinson Cano.
Yeah, it stinks that he takes up a spot. That's what $20 million a year will do. You just have to play because otherwise we're paying you to play for another team.
Literally. But let's keep wrapping up the spring training stats and we'll get to more roster construction things. Because Chris Bassett pitched on Thursday. He looked fantastic. Saw Mets Twitter was really, really jacked up about him because I think most people in the Mets universe have probably never seen Chris Bassett play ever once.
I think that's fair for a dude who did most of his work out in Oakland. Of all the West Coast teams, Oakland playing in the AL West is something Mets fans I don't think are particularly familiar with. Same thing with Canna and Marte at times.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're like a fantasy baseball like lunatic or just like a degenerate who's going to throw the A's game on at midnight, like you've probably never seen Chris Bassett pitch. But he just got a great curveball, keeps the hitters off balance. I think he's going to become a fan favorite here very, very quickly.
We've said it from the start. He's going to be the Marcus Stroman of this this rotation. He's going to go out every 5 days. He's going to give you 6-7 innings. He gave us 5 in his first spring training start with 5 Ks. That's Chris Bassett baseball right there. He's going to be a 9K per 9 guy all year long.
You almost said 1K per 9 would stink.
Yeah, no, that'd be horrible. That would be horrendous.
We faced 2 of those guys today in Dakota Hudson and Jake Woodford.
Oh, Jake Woodford, that poor guy. He's just got nothing.
He's terrible. But the whole Cardinals pitching staff has nothing, but they just throw him out there and say, well, probably.
We got great fielding behind you, so there will be outs. You still have to get a hit if you're playing baseball. It's still really hard.
I felt kind of bad for Matthew Liberatore today. We had a lot of starters in against him, and they kind of teed off.
They went off on Matthew Liberatore. He is not particularly ready, I think, for the majors just yet.
He probably will. He'll be in AAA this year. But again, Bassett, big thing. Another guy I really liked from Thursday. This was the game that was not on TV, but luckily there's a really good account on Twitter called Pitching Bot who's been compiling all the information he can and getting guys like pitch effects for these spring training games. And that was Eric Orze. Orze?
I think it's Orz. I don't know. I'm not sure, but he was I think like 5th round pick in 2020 MLB draft out of University of New Orleans, I believe.
Yeah, and he was intended to be a reliever, and he's been being developed as a reliever for the last few years. I think he got up to AA last year and got pretty good results. And on Thursday, apparently, he was sitting 94, 95, which is higher than 93 he was sitting the week before. And apparently it's a very good changeup with a slider, and he throws a variation of that slider, like with less slide, more velocity, more for soft contact. And he's a reliever who will probably get to AAA this year and could contribute on the Mets. I think people should keep an eye out for Eric Orze, just like your boy Colin Holderman we talked about last week.
Yeah, no, the Mets have a nice little grouping of these younger minor league arms that can now step in, and it's not going to be like some of the absolute bums we've seen in the past that have come up. These guys have some legitimate stuff. No more Jeff Hartliebs.
No. But similar to like Yency Diaz last year, who you acquire as a guy who's close to the major leagues.
Forgot about Yency.
Yeah, I think he's still involved. He's in the mix, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. He's tons of options. Him and Reed Foley, too. Like, those guys are going to be here for a bit.
Yeah, so Orze is probably going to be in the lot like Yency, where if things get really ugly by June or July, you might see him for an inning or two. You could be like, oh, this guy's not that bad. I remember James telling me about him in the Mets'd podcast.
And then, of course, we got to talk about the moonshot heard around the world by Francisco Alvarez. Holy fucking shit, was that ball destroyed.
Yeah, our boy was trending on Twitter.
He hit that ball. The sound it made was like that of a gunshot. And then it hit the fucking scoreboard. And like he took such a violent swing. I can't wait to see this guy in the Mets in a couple, like in a season or two. He's going to be so good.
It was, again, you also mentioned him being behind the plate. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that's keeping him from the major leagues. It's pretty obvious he has a major league bat right now. The fact that he hit that ball 440 feet and 109 miles an hour. Do we know who it was off of?
It was off a Marlins like minor league guy. So it's relatively to his skill level right now. But I think it's also funny to mention that he said he was going to hit a home run that night, and he did. I fucking love his confidence is through the roof. You saw it with our interview. He's got star written all over him.
He's definitely swagged out for sure. And again, it's very clear that he can hang with this caliber of players. He's going to start the year in AA. There's a chance he moves through quickly, and there's probably an outside chance, like a 10% chance we see him in the major leagues this year.
Oh, definitely, especially like if someone were to go down, or if somebody was really struggling, or if he's just on such a tear that you're like, we got to see if this guy can make an impact right now. I've seen teams do it before. It would not be out of the question to see a little Francisco Alvarez sighting at some point in Queens.
Definitely. And the existence of the DH makes it even more likely.
Yeah, especially because of his catching stuff. But I will say this, he did look good in the game that he caught. He was framed the ball well. He looked solid. I think a lot of people are pleasantly surprised at the development Francisco Alvarez made seemingly this offseason during the lockout and everything, because he was working hard. He was with a lot of major league players this offseason. And
you could just kind of see it in like his body. Like he's very bouncy back there. You like Francisco Alvarez, again, we've met him, but he's very like, I don't know, even though he's like built like kind of like a fullback, like he's very lithe. Like he's on the balls of his feet. He seems like he can like, he's just a very explosive person, player. That makes him such a good hitter, but that's also a reason that he can stick behind the plate. And Fangraphs has him as a 45 like /55 there. So it's not like he's a disaster. We have a guy who can catch. It's probably just not his calling card, which for a 20-year-old kid, that's really not the end of the world.
No, and especially when he swings a bat like that. Like if you can get the offensive production that we expect from Francisco Alvarez, a catcher, you kind of don't really care about what he does behind the plate. I mean, the Yankees were trotting out Gary Sanchez forever, and he wasn't even that good of a hitter at times. And it was still more valuable than putting out Kyle Higashioka every game.
Yeah, Higashioka's actually showed some good power this spring. I think he has multiple home runs.
Oh, he crushed a home run off of our favorite pitcher in baseball, Brad Hand, which I love to see him struggling.
He had another one today, too. That was good stuff. But the last thing I want to mention about spring training, like stats, data, info, in that same game on Friday that Alvarez hit the bomb, Carlos Cortez laced a double, 109 miles an hour. He's a guy, again, we've been talking about on the show for months. He's going to be in AAA to start the year. He doesn't really have a position. But this Mets team might just need a bat at some point, and there's a good chance that we see Carlos Cortez get some at bats, possibly kind of early, depending on how he looks in comparison to Mark Vientos and how many at bats are really available.
He's a dude who would have been great to take that Cano spot as the last guy on the roster because he can play a little second base and he plays the outfield as well, which is just kind of what the Mets need right now. A little versatility at multiple positions. He'd be perfect if he's ready, which seems like he's getting closer to being ready.
The bat seems pretty ready. Like, he's dominated every single upper minor stop he's ever been to. He's going to go AAA next year. And he's probably going to hit pretty well. And then from there, it's almost like, what more can you do? And Cortez also has like a bit of a shorter swing than some of the guys we've seen, like Clearly and Nick Plummer, where he seems like he would be more able to attack that high velocity fastball, especially up in the zone, which is the biggest difference I see between AAA and the major leagues right now. The guys sitting in AAA just don't have 96. They can't put it up. Cortez kind of has a body type and a swing that looks like he can be able to get to that if he needed to.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Mets, I feel like the guys that we know about feeling really good about it. But then, like you said, that depth right now, while we did technically improve, there are some things that feel a little bit incomplete. And you mentioned that they had this big meeting of the brains. You mentioned the roster cuts. You mentioned everything. I mean, is there something that you think the Mets need to do right now in order to make you feel better or maybe make Mets fans feel better about this team going into the season?
What I think is going to happen is that because we have this 28-man roster, the Mets are going to use that roster spot for an extra batter. I feel like almost every single team in baseball is going to use those two spots to add 2 extra arms and carry like 14 or 15 pitchers out of a 28-man roster. But the Mets just have this locked and loaded 5-man bench of Dom, JD, Nito, Cano, Guillorme. So I guess that's actually technically a 4-man bench because one of those guys will be in the lineup every day.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah, I guess theoretically one of them has to be. But that's still basically 5, I would say, bench caliber players. Maybe JD and Dom can hit enough, but I don't know if they can play the field enough if it's available to them, whatever. And there's no real backup outfielder in that mix. So we're almost
Jankowski, I think.
That's what I was about to say. Travis Jankowski is almost definitely going to be the guy who gets that roster spot besides an extra pitcher. And it would just end up carrying 13 pitchers, which, again, that's not really the worst thing in the world. But he's a Major League Baseball player. Like, he's fast. He, again, just loves to hit the ball on the ground. But he plays good defensive center field. And they better fucking, like, use these guys. Like, pinch hit for somebody in the 5th inning if there's a different pitcher on the mound, your matchup's different. Or, like, there's a guy on base and James McCann's coming up in the 7th. Put someone else up there, either Dom or JD, depending on the handedness of the pitcher, and then bring Nito in the inning after that. If you're going to have a big bench, use it to your advantage. Don't just let these guys sit in the pine for 3 days in a row.
Well, there's a good chance, too, that maybe they carry a third catcher, so it could be I feel like I haven't seen anything of Mazika. Where's he at?
He was definitely around the beginning of spring training. I have no idea where he's at, but he could be the option, too, that third catcher. But then you get that third catcher on there, it's just like, I don't know if he can give you anything with the bat or the glove.
For sure.
Yeah, I'd rather just bring another one of these outfielders up here who could run.
No, I was just thinking more of that pinch hit situation where like McCann or Neo come up late and you want to get a different bat in there. At least if that next guy who comes in has something go wrong, we're not putting Jeff McNeil behind the plate, who's our emergency catcher, as we know.
Yeah, definitely. But just kind of feels like as the Mets close spring training here, one more week of games coming up, that there's just a gigantic Michael Conforto shaped hole in the middle of this roster that no one's really talking about. And it has absolutely no steam whatsoever. And it's kind of shocking how quiet that front is.
Well, we got some information that Conforto might not be the biggest sabermetrics guy. And that came out in like the, Chili Davis article, all that kind of stuff, that there were some guys around the team that maybe didn't like to listen to all the information and stuff that was being given to them. We also know possibly about a little unvaccination stuff, which could be a problem, although now it's cleared at Citi Field, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. But it feels like you said, Michael Conforto would slot in really well somewhere with this team. That left-handed bat would do some damage here. And I think it is so bizarre that his market is just seemingly non-existent because he's at worst like a better than league average hitter. Like we saw probably one of his worst seasons last year, and he was league average. And that was like a pretty awful season of his. So it's crazy that no one seems to be interested in him at all because there's teams around the league that need him more than the Mets. So really, at the end of the day, is it just the Mets playing like a little hardball of like, we're going to wait it out and we're going to sneak in and get you here for dirt cheap when you have no other options?
His worst season since 2016, which was a bad year for him. He had a little bit of that sophomore slump when he was 23 years old. But since 2017, he was no worse than 19% better than league average in terms of WRC plus in any complete season. And of course, the 54 game 2020, maybe he played a little bit inflated, a little bit above his skis. But this is a guy who is just so clearly not bad. And I think that other teams in the league have the issue of whether or not they're going to give up a draft pick to sign a guy short term, because I think that Scott Boras is probably still trying to get Michael Conforto the type of like for 80 deal that he thinks is even less than his value anyway. In truth, it actually might be, but those teams probably don't want to do that. And then they also don't want to give up a draft pick for a guy they're only going to have for 2 years. So it's almost like we're getting to this forced marriage between Michael Conforto and the Mets. It doesn't really make sense for anyone besides us, as crazy as that sounds. But then you also wonder if other teams around the league are also aware that he might be a bit of an ornery fellow, and that could also be something that pushes you away from a contract. That could be a reason that the Mets internally haven't even entertained it. But at some point, he makes his team vastly better. And I wonder if we're going to hear anything about that this week.
Yeah, and his contract would be super interesting too, because Castellanos kind of got the contract that you expected Conforto to be similar to, that like 5-year, $100 million, $20 million a year. And then you saw Jorge Soler, who got the 3-year, $36 million deal, I think, from the Marlins. So he's kind of in between those, because he's not going to get the Castellanos money right now, and he's not going to get as low as Jorge Soler. So is he like a 1-year, $15 million? I mean, I feel like Conforto's probably eating crow a little bit here and should have taken that qualifying offer at the end of the day.
But I think that offer is probably still relatively on the table. Like, I'm sure they just would say, like, if you want to come back, 1 for 18, exactly what we offered you before, and then just keep going next year, ride it out. And the Mets just lose the opportunity for a pick. But I'd rather have a guy who's probably going to slot in and be one of the better outfielders on this team, a team that's starving for one. And then you could have a rotating DH between Canna, Nimmo, and Marte, especially as Nimmo, we know, is not always the most healthy. And while Marte is getting more healthy, then it kind of makes it a little more competitive for the Cano, JD, Dom. You're not really relying on one of those guys if you get Michael Conforto. And I think everyone can agree that Michael Conforto is a better hitter right now than probably JD, Dom, or Cano.
Yeah, and even if you combine them and you hit Dom against righties, JD against lefties, Conforto, I think, is still the better player.
And also, you could just, with these 2 left-handed outfielders, I think Ken has already, you have the great platoon partners between JD and Dom for whoever is not the DH that day. Like, this entire roster becomes much more whole with another very solid left-handed bat who can play the outfield on it. And he seems to be the one.
Yeah, no, he would fit really well. The big question, though, is do the Mets feel that? Do the Mets see him as the guy? And, like, you got to imagine Sandy, who he brought in Conforto, right, Sandy?
I think it was probably one of his drafts, yeah.
You got to imagine that Sandy's probably fighting for him. And you got to imagine that it seems like maybe Epler's not as in. Again, this is all speculation. We have no actual proof whatsoever. But just thinking about how this organization works, Epler and those guys came in, they wanted to start new. And Conforto was kind of a bit of the old. And especially if he was pushing against all this new information. We know that he didn't like when Keith Hernandez was giving him tips back in the day. So maybe he is a little bit stubborn. Maybe he doesn't like to hear what he's doing wrong. Maybe it's an attitude issue. But as a player, he really does help this team.
His last year was so out of the blue compared to the rest of his career. I just simply won't believe that is anything close to the norm. It's the red herring. And like, if he does sign somewhere else for like 3 for 50, like someone's going to get a deal. And it seems like it would behoove Michael Conforto so much to take a 1-year deal and try and recoup most of his value. Like, it'd be so easy for him to recoup his value. Even if he's just like solid next year, he's not the 130, 140 WRC guy. It's even just like a 110, a 112 guy with competent defense. He'll get himself something close to the Castellano contract next year. Like, it's highly possible.
That's exactly what I was going to say. He's 29 years old. Play well like we've seen him play, and he's going to get in between that Schwarber-Castellanos deal, I think.
Most teams won't even feel that much of an issue to give it to him. He just turned 29, too. He was 28 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like, there are so many teams that need him, like the White Sox. You would think the White Sox would be all over Michael Conforto.
They're on some weird shit. The Padres, I think Voit kind of filled that void for them. And the team that makes the most sense is the Blue Jays. And we saw the Blue Jays make a trade to free up some money last week when they sent Randall Grichuk to Colorado for Ryan Tapia. But if he's not vaccinated, he just can't play.
Yeah.
So like that kind of takes that team completely out of the equation. One of the teams that seemed like they'd be the most aggressive. The team that could really use him, whose team he would change the bottom line the most, is the goddamn Cleveland Guardians. But they've spent exactly $0 this offseason.
They haven't spent anything. The A's have spent. The A's made one move and was bringing back the name we won't mention.
The name we won't mention, and Stephen Vogt.
Oh, okay. Can't forget Stephen Vogt.
No,
Big move.
No. The 2 starting ball players, Mark. You missed them.
We might be able to pay Stephen Vogt.
Yeah, probably scrape together the funds. The left-handed catching platoon. But just like, there's teams that are going to sign him, but it just seems like no one wants to give up the draft pick and pay him money for multiple years. So again, it seems like we're just slowly dragging out to this deal with the Mets, unless Conforto wants to pull the crazy Boris move and wait until May. A very good player gets injured or something somewhere, and then he gets a 3-year deal for their $60 million.
Gun to your head, do the Mets sign Michael Conforto?
I low-key start to I'm thinking kind of, yeah, maybe.
See, I feel like they would have already if they were going to. That's the only thing that's making me say no. But like you said, if this team is trying to be smart and trying to really win now, talk about a move that would make this team a lot more scary. Michael Conforto to this lineup makes it a hell of a lot deeper, a hell of a lot more strong, and just especially against right-handed pitching, great right-handed pitching lineup.
I don't even think scary is the word. It's just like solid. Like he just really adds to the floor. He's like that kind of oatmeal we've been talking about for a while. Like all the projection systems that kind of run baseball nowadays, especially in terms of these front offices, they all think about Conforto is going to be like at worst 15% better than league average.
Yeah.
And the most favorables have him 23% better with 23 homers, 75, 12% walks, 21% strikeouts, 260, 360, 460 slash. That's like because we wanted that's a good player. This guy's going to be worth between 2.5 and 3 wins.
We're talking about Robinson Cano hitting 5th. You put Michael Conforto right in that 5 spot, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, hold on a second. This lineup just got very strong.
No, yeah, Michael Conforto, it still has fucking ceiling. Like Michael Conforto, he probably had his best season. It was that year when he fucked up his shoulder and ruined it, and the 60-game 2020. Like he'll probably never get to that level again, where he's hitting like 290 with 35 home run power. And in 2017, he played 109 games, he had 27 homers, and he had 280.
It's crazy.
That's super good. That's amazing. Like, God, but there's something. There's still more in that bat. And the way he ended last year, most Met fans see him as like a leper, and it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, even at times last year, you could probably find some clips of me saying, get this guy off this team. I'm done with Michael Conforto. I feel like every Met fan did that at some point.
I don't think we wouldn't even have to look hard, but I've had the exact same tune about this guy the whole time. Like, he's still good.
Man. I mean, listen, I think as Mets fans, it's really refreshing that the problem that we're talking about right now is whether or not we should be signing Michael Conforto as our 4th outfielder / DH option, something that Mets teams in the past did not have an issue with.
I think he's better than Canna. I think that pushes Canna out of the 4th outfield DH.
Oh, you're a Canna hater, man.
I'm not a Canna hater. He's good, but Michael Conforto is better.
I don't know. I think Canna is better all around. I think offensively, Conforto has a little bit on Mark Canna. I think they're very close. Defensively, Canna's very, very good in the outfield. I don't think that he gets talked about how good he is in the outfield enough.
I don't think he's very good in the outfield. I think he's just fine there. I mean, his I've never seen any like defensive metrics have him doing anything better than average. And he's a fine hitter. And he's had the last couple of years of his career been good. But I mean, I just get so worried when these new guys come to Citi Field, they get swallowed up. It's such a fear I have. And maybe it's just like it's not warranted. But I get so scared when these guys come to Citi Field.
By the way, just a little fun fact: Mark Canna, 74th percentile outs above average last year.
That's okay. There you go. Yeah, I was on Fangraphs, so there you go.
But anyway, back to what I was about to say before I found the Mark Canna stat. There's actually a rumor and a report that there's going to be humidors in all 30 baseball parks.
That's not a rumor nor report. That's 100% real.
Oh, it's fact. Okay.
100% fact. Yeah, Boog said it, clarified by Enos Harris.
Okay, so that's actually kind of big for the Mets and Citi Field because there's actually theories that the humidor will reverse and make the ball more bouncy at Citi Field.
Can I burst your bubble?
Yes, do it for me.
The Mets have had a humidor for 2 years.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, fuck me. I guess they're going to suck at hitting.
Sorry about that. It's just the fucking jet streams, man. LaGuardia is killing us.
Friggin' planes. Well, I mean, that was great. We haven't had a nice baseball argument in a while. Talking Canna, talking Conforto, talking Cano.
We're not arguing about Canna. Stop labeling me as a Canna hater. Why'd you tweet that the other day? It's not warranted.
I'm labeling you as a Canna hater.
Not true.
But anyway, we talked about Cano being a bum and then how great DeGrom, Scherzer, Alonso, Lindor, all the guys that matter look. Even Jeff McNeil getting some hits, looking like the old Jeff McNeil slapping the ball the other way. Love to see it.
Jeff had some frustrating ground out today.
He gave us a goddamn it.
I saw him clench, but he didn't do it. He didn't throw anything yet.
He's trying his hardest to not get so insanely mad, and I respect it. That's called growth. And Jeff, he's going to be a father. He's growing.
I actually had a Jeff McNeil. Really? Congratulations to Jeff. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's a couple months old. But yeah, he's going to be a father.
There was one thing I did want to mention about Jeff McNeil, and it seemed like the internal respect he still has as a hitter, because in the last 2 spring training games, he hit third and he hit leadoff. So I think that maybe some people, including us, have thought he might hit lower in the order. It seems like the Mets are still committed to giving him a primary lineup spot.
Yeah, I probably slots in it too, especially if Marte is kind of a little iffy. He's probably our two-ish hitter in that area.
Possibly, yeah, depending on how this goes. But I think that was important to note that they still see him as a bat.
Yes, Jeff McNeil is a Buck Showalter player if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, but there were more stuff today. There was a clip that they went to Buck Showalter in like the 2nd or 3rd inning, and they were talking about his hand at the leadership, whatever. Todd Zeile was spewing nonsense as usual, and Buck is just sitting in the dugout smelling a baseball. Oh,
dude, me and my dad were talking about that. I was like, you seeing that? He's just taking rips of a baseball.
That was amazing. That's a yes.
I mean, I don't know if you guys that are listening have truly smelt the baseball, but it's a fantastic smell. Like if they can make an air freshener for that, I'd have it in my house.
Dude, I hit in a cage for the first time in like 5 years the other day with my buddy. Went to like a beautiful youth baseball field in a hill in La Jolla during the school day. And we just went to the cage with some balls and pitched to each other and then threw it around the outfield after. What a great time hitting is. I forgot.
Yeah, we got softball games coming up here. We got to get ready.
Oh, yeah, next Saturday, right.
But anyway, here, guys, that's going to be how we wrap it up here on episode number 80 of the Mets'd podcast. Remember to drop us a review, a 5-star rating. We'll give you a shout out if you do. Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google, wherever you're listening. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram at Mets'd, as well as the YouTube channel Mets'd Podcast for video form content. Follow James on Twitter at Jeter Had No Range, and me, Giraffe Neck Mark, at Giraffe Neck Mark with a C. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode of the Mets'd podcast, guys. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Thanks for listening.